bakit ba kailangan ang Constitution mismo ang i-change natin? Why not just strengthen the local government code? Diba, meron naman tayong local government code. So, ngayon, pakinggan natin si Atty. Charlie Serapio to give us the philosophy of
Blessed good morning to everyone. And, thank you for giving me this opportunity to share with you some thoughts on the present movement of trying to reform and transform the nation. Allow me first to address all of you as compatriots in his invocation. He mentioned about love of country. And that is the spirit that again motivates us to spend time to reflect on our current situation. So, if you will allow me, let me move forward by trying to place ourselves all on the same page by looking at the words that constitute the topic that has been assigned to me. That is the philosophy of change and the politics of constitution making. The problem, whenever we have a forum such as this, is some words, big as that, as they sound, at times have different interpretations to each one of us. So if we can really just try to focus on a specific meaning of each word, then we can probably know the points of our reference and be able to converge in our thinking and in our reading of a situation. Let's begin with philosophy. Well, philosophy has always been the underlying principle of anything. It comes from two Greek words. I know you're familiar with them, philos and sophia, which simply means love of wisdom. What is the difference between wisdom and knowledge? Ano ba ang kaibahan ng kaalaman sa karunungan? Maaaring alam mo, pero hindi mo alam ang lalim na kahulugan at ano ang maaaring epekto nito sa ating buhay. Wisdom, madalas sinasabi natin yung tao yung wise, hindi na nag-aral, baka grade school lamang yan, pero ano siya? Wise, straight, smart. Kaya siya wise, na sinasabi, ay sapagkat alam niya kung paano gamitin yung kanyang nalalaman para sa pagpapaunlad ng kanyang buhay at para yung layunin ng kanyang buhay ay kanyang makamit. So, change, on the other hand, means pagbabago. Alam naman natin lahat yan. But perhaps the best way to describe or define change is by saying it is that event which is certain. Laging magkakaroon ng pagbabago. Sa ayaw natin sa gusto, ang pagbabago ay nangyayari. Ang pinag-uusapan lang, madalas, kailan mangyayari yung pagbabago. But change is certain. It is certain as death, and politically, as they say, it is certain as taxes. So, maski sa sarili nating buhay, nung tayo'y pinanganak bilang sanggol, naging bata, tayo nagbinata, nagdalaga, tumanda, hanggang darating ka sa kamatayan. May pagbabago nangyayari sa atin. Ay, kung dati ay mahaba ang buhok mo, yung iba dyan, nawawala ng buhok. Maski sa personal na, no offense meant, yan ako rin na naminipis na ang buhok. Dati ang buhok mo maitim, pumuputi na rin siya. Dahil yan ang batas ng kalikasan. That is the law of nature. So change essentially is governed by the law of nature, and therefore it is certain. The other thing about change is that it happens internally because of certain external conditions that impact on us. That is likewise the law of change. Kung ano ba yung external condition, halimbawa, ang isang external condition ay pag-aaral. Ikaw ay nag-aaral sa paaralan, yung paaralan mo ay isang panlabas na kalagayan na nagkakaroon ng epekto sa iyong pananaw, sa iyong pag-iisip, sa iyong pag-uugali. Yung kinapapaluubang pamilya, isa rin yung external na condition. Pero, kung wala kang kakayahan sa panloob, kahit na mayroong external condition, ay hindi ka pa rin magbabago. Napaumanin doon sa mga nakakarinig lagi na sinasabi ko, ito, halimbawa ito, dahil ulitin ko na naman, para lamang maidiin ko kung ano yung kaibahan ng internal basis of change and the external condition of change. The internal basis of change is your inherent character, the inherent capacity to evolve and to transform. Sabi ko nga, bawa yung itlog. Yung itlog, may inherent o internal capability yan na maging sisiw. Pero kailangan niya ng external condition. Hindi siya basta magiging sisiw yung itlog if the external condition of heat is absent. Kailangan mangyari yun sa init ng pakpak ng inahing manok o kaya sa init na binibigay na incubator. Without the application of the external condition, the egg will never hatch into a chick. On the other hand, a stone, regardless of how much heat you apply to it, will never become a chick. Tama ba yun? Kahit na anong init pa ilapat mo sa isang bato, hindi yan magiging sisiw. Kaya kinakailangan mayroong kang panloob na kakayahang magbago o mag-evolve para na sa gayon makatubod ka doon sa panlabas na kalagayan yun. That is again the other basis of change. So even a nation changes. For 400 years, napanood natin kanina, we were a conquered nation. We were under the rule of the Spaniards for 400 years. But what external conditions came about that helped us hatch, naging malaya tayong bansa at least mula sa pagkakahawak sa atin ng mga Kastila? Ano yun? Meron mga kondisyon yan. Nagkaroon na noon ng printing press. So, technological changes or technological conditions like dahil may printing press na, nagkaroon ng mga libro, mga aklat. Si Bonifacio, hindi nakarating yan sa ibang bansa. Pero nakapagbasa ng mga libro na nilimbag sa ibang bansa. Nabasa niya ang libro tungkol sa French Revolution. Nabasa niya ang konsepto tungkol sa egalitarianism, fraternity, and liberty. Yun yung mga ideya in the French Revolution. And that inspired him. Sila Rizal naman at yung mga ibang ilustrado nakapaglakbay sa ibang bansa at nakita nila kung ano nangyayari sa Barcelona. Nakita nila nangyayari sa Madrid. Nagpunta rin lang kasi sa Alemanya, sa iba pang bahagi sa Europa. At yung external condition na yun ang nagpabago ng kanyang pananaw. Pero kung walang kaloob na kakayahan mismo si Rizal, kahit na nakita niya yung kanyang manalaman sa paligid niya, it will not transform him. Now, I have quoted here, for example, what is the internal nature of things pagdating sa tao. Ang sabi ni Rizal, ang tao, hindi yan isang brute, hindi yan animal, hindi yan kalabaw, na parati mo lamang basta pakainin mo ng damo, kinabukasan, hagupitin mo, at tutulungan ka niya para araruin yung bukid. Ang tao ay kinakailangan mayroong kahulugan ang kanyang paghahanap buhay. Hindi siya isang makina. Kailangan yung kanyang ginagawa ay bigyan siya ng kaganapan, bigyan siya ng kaligayahan. Kinakailangan umunlad siya. Yan ang sinabi ni Rizal doon sa kanyang essay na The Indolence of the Filipino. Kasi sinasabi, tamad daw tayo mga Pilipino. Ang sagot niya, hindi tayo tamad. Kaya nawawalan ng gana ang mga Pilipino ay dahil sa wala naman sila nakikita kapakinabangan doon sa pinagagawa sa kanila. Pero tignan mo yung ating mga OFW. Pagka nasa ibang bansa, nababago ugali, nababago pananaw, nagiging mas masipag. Kasi nakikita nila ang binubunga ng kanilang paghihirap. Nakikita nila na kapag sila'y nagsipag, ay sila ay uunlad. So sabi niya, hindi tayo talagang likas na tamad. We are not naturally or inherently indolent. Kundi mga masisipag tayo, subalit dapat bigyan tayo ng sapat na kahulugan doon sa ating ginagawa. At ang kalagayan natin ay bibigyan tayo ng pagkakataong umunlad. So, the politics of change very simply means pagka inugat natin ang batayan ng pagbabago, ito ay ang likas na layunin ng mga tao na sila ay umunlad at maging maligaya sa kanilang buhay. It is the pursuit of happiness that makes and motivates man to change. Yung iba nagsisikap mag-aral ng mabuti kasi dahil doon sa pag-aaral, nakikita nilang kasangkapan yun para lagi pa sila umunlad. So, but change happens also in two ways. Yung sinabi ko kanina, 400 years. So when we speak of numbers, it is quantity. 400 years bago natin napag-isipan na tayo ay kinakailangan lumaya na mula sa mga Kastila at bago natin napag-isipan, humingi ng kapangyarihan mula sa Kastila. Hindi naman agad-agad tayong naglayon o yung ating mga ninunong bayani, hindi naman nila ginusto agad na maghimagsik. Humingi sila, kaya sila nagpupunta sa Espanya, nakikiusap sila sa hari ng Espanya na sabi, bigyan niyo naman kami ng bahagi sa pagpapasya kung paano paunlarin ang aming buhay, bigyan mo kami ng bahagi ng kapangyarihan sa Spanish Cortes. Pero hindi sila pinakinggan. So mula doon sa pakikiusap, mahabang panahon, nauwi tayo doon sa himagsikan. So change happens either in an evolutionary way. Dahan-dahan, mahinahon, mapayapa, or change also can happen in a violent, disruptive way, which is destructive, and that is in the form of revolution. The stories of nations of the world are like this. It can happen evolutionarily, or it can happen disruptively in a revolutionary manner. The French had their own French Revolution. The Americans had their own American Revolution. On the other hand, India had a peaceful transition through the ways that Gandhi manifested, the Gandhi followed. So, it is really up to us, how this change will happen in the country, and it is really up to how developments will actually evolve in the country. But sooner or later, what is certain is change will come. In the case of our being a nation under the bondage of the Spaniards, those three happened. There was a decline in the powers that be during that time. Spain was on the decline, America was on the rise. Technology happened, and then the internal conditions also worsened. Yun yung sinasabi ni Rizal, that the social cancer. Hanggat sumasama ang kalagayan sa bansa noon, lalong maraming tao ang nahihirapan. Kaya doon sa pinakitang video na yun, ipinakita roon. Yung meron tatlong pare na binitay, ipinakita roon yung mga nangyayari na rin ng mga kahirapan na nagtulak doon sa ating mga ninunong mga bayani, politiko na ng sedula. Iyon ang nagbigay ng pananaw sa kanila, wala na tayong magagawa, kinakailangan natin na tayo ay himagsik na. That is how change happens individually and also collectively. Now, what about the politics of constitution making? Again, let us go to the operative words. The operative words are politics. Saan ba galing yung salitang politics? It comes again from two Greek words, polis and polites. Polis simply means the city, state, or the community, while polites means citizens. So citizens in a city, state. And politics require from the citizens the ability to participate in decision making. Kinakailangan kasama sila sa kaparaanan ng pagpapasya. Ano ba ang mabuti para sa kanila? Ano ba ang makapagpapaunlad sa kanila? So when we speak of a constitution, the constitution actually has politics in its core or center. Kasi sa constitution, doon sinasabi ng taong bayan, ano ba yung klaseng tahanan? O ano bang klaseng bansa yung gusto namin? Nandun yan sa preamble kagad. We, the Philippine people, invoking the aid of divine providence in order to establish a nation that shall embody our ideals and all of that under a regime of love, justice, etc. The preamble states for us our aspiration on how we would want the nation to become. At the same time, the Constitution defines the process. Paano natin mapupuntahan, makakamit yung layunin natin ng ganung bansa? At ano yung mga organization o yung bali gagawin natin organs of power that will be the vehicles for us to be able to go from where we are right now to where we want to go. Now, if you will look at our constitutional history, you will know that for the 1899 Malolos Constitution to come into being, what was the preceding event? Ano ho yung nangyari bago tayo nagkaroon ng tinatawag na Malolos Constitution na naging batayan ng unang Republika ng Pilipinas? What was the triggering event? The triggering event was the Revolution of 1898. But before the Revolution of 1898 happened, what were the other events that preceded it? The so many revolts which were happening in different parts of the country, the Dagohoy Revolt and all the rest, no? That took so many years until they accumulated, because again, that is the character of change. Change happens cumulatively, quantitatively, before you have a quality of the change. So the preceding event for the establishment of the first Philippine Republic was the revolution that brought about the Malolos Congress, that in turn crafted the Malolos Constitution. The next constitution that we had was after that, we were defeated by the Americans and we were ruled by the Americans, was the 1935 Constitution. In the case of the 1935 Constitution, what was the preceding event? American rule. But during the American rule, our leaders, you have the likes of Smenya here from Cebu, together with Rojas of Capiz, so they had what they call the Ostrock mission in the United States. They campaigned, they talked to the leaders of the United States. We want to be independent because when you came to rule us, we were already in the process of making ourselves as an independent nation. So the leaders then, like Quezon, sent a mission to the United States, and then other leaders like Usmeña, as I mentioned, and Rojas also sent a mission there. And you had what called the Air House Scouting Law and the Tidings-McDuffie Law, which were passed by the U.S. Congress. All of those served as the basis for us to have what they call as the Commonwealth period of self-rule. 10 years trial period for us to become independent. Hence, the 1935 Constitution was crafted. Okay? What was the preceding or the triggering event? It was American rule. Then, the Japanese came. When the Japanese came, what was in effect here in the country was the 1935 Constitution. Then we know that we were ruled by the Japanese from 1941 up to close to 1945. By the time 1946, the Americans granted us their independence. So we did not revolt against the Americans granted independence. So that is the reason why we had the 1935 Constitution in place as our Constitution even during the time of the so-called Second Republic. From 1946 to 1971, our people wanted more change because the Constitution at that time was no longer responding to the imperatives of the conditions happening in the country. And so, a constitutional convention was called. This was in 1971. the likes of Nene Pimentel from Cagayan de Oro, of Davide from Cebu, and others became members of the 1971 Constitutional Convention. But what was happening outside? What was the external condition that was impacting on the drive of the nation to reform and to transform? The communist insurgency was also growing, and there was a lot of protest. Student activism was on the rise, and the leaders then wanted to respond to it. The Constitutional Convention of 71 wanted to respond to it by changing the 1935 Constitution. The powers that be at the time, meaning the Marcos administration, wanted to respond even further. So it declared martial law in 1972. What was therefore the preceding and triggering event that brought about a new constitution? It was not only the 71 Constitutional Convention that crafted a new constitution to replace the 1935, but rather it was the declaration of martial law. That was the event that brought about a different version of what the 71 Concon produced. And that Constitution became the 1973 Constitution. How was the 1973 Constitution ratified? Was it ratified in accordance and with the manner provided for by the 1935 Constitution? Do you remember the barangay assemblies? Most of you are still, perhaps, you're not born yet. Huh? But it was not ratified strictly in accordance with the 1935 Constitution provision. But instead, through the barangay assemblies, the people, by raising their hands, said, we approve of the 1973 Constitution version that was produced during martial law. That Constitution was in place from 73 up to 1986. What triggered then again the change of the Constitution to what is presently the 1987 Constitution? It was the EDSA People Power Revolution. My point, my dear compatriot, is that external conditions impact on a nation and on its people that bring about change. But change can either be, as I mentioned earlier, evolutionarily or in a revolutionary manner. Who will decide that? The decision is going to be both addressed to the people and the conditions that will affect their action. In Mindanao, they have now their autonomous region. Congress responded by passing the Bangsamoro Organic Law, the BOL. Why did Congress respond to it more in haste than the kind of response that they were giving in the Cordillera? Because the situation, the security conditions in Mindanao is more serious than it is in the Cordillera. And what was the external situation to which the lawmakers are responding to? What? As the President would always warn, the alternative to our peacemaking effort is what? Because unless we respond to the demand of the Bangsamoro people through a change of our organic law and a change in our statutes, then the alternative may be what? Magnify the situation in Mindanao, in Cordillera, and you have now the national situation. That is the situation to which the Constitutional Committee to review the 1987 Constitution is trying to respond. The issue now is, are we going to positively respond to it so that we will have and manage peaceful transition and evolution of our political life, or is this going to be imposed to us by events? That is the real question. Now, why do we need to change the Constitution? My compatriots, the Constitution is essentially the real platform of power of the people. Even if it's just theoretically, that is the reality. Hindi po eleksyon ang totoong pinagmumulan ng kapangyarihan ng taong bayan. Ang eleksyon po ay mekanismo lamang ng nilikha ng taong bayan na nakapaloob sa ating saligang batas. At yun po ay mekanismo lamang para ang taong bayan, kung hindi sila nasisiyahan sa mga namumuno sa kanila, ay kanilang mapalitan. It is a mechanism of accountability that has been provided for in the Constitution, but that is not the real platform of power of the people. The real platform of power of the people is the Constitution. And that is the reason why when you speak of a constitutional democratic government, you are speaking of a limited government. Dahil ang kapangyarihan ng taong bayan po ay ganap. Ibig sabihin ganap ay buong buo po ito. Sila ang totoong kapangyarihan. Pero ang taong bayan, lalo sa atin, 100 mahigit na milyon na po tayo, hindi naman tayo maaari kumilos lagi araw-araw ng sabay-sabay. Magkakahiwalay pa tayo sa iba't ibang mga kapulupan. Magkakaiba rin ang ating mga wika. So, in a democracy, ang ginagawa po ng taong bayan ay yung kapangyarihan nila yun, ibinibigay sa kanilang mga kinatawan. Ang kanilang kinatawan, whether they are elected or appointed, actually act for and on behalf of the people, who is the real source of power and authority. Pagka ang isang tao ay binigyan ng kapangyarihan sa pamamagitan ng paraan na itinalaga ng taong bayan, that power becomes authority. Mandated power is authority. And where does the mandate come from? The mandate comes from the people. But the people's mandate comes through a process or a mechanism, and that is election. Pero paano na ho? Kung ang nangyayari, katulad nung nabanggit naman doon sa video, political insanity, ang taong bayan nga namimili, no? Si Pedro ba o si Juan? Ngayon, pipiliin si Pedro. Pagkatapos sa ilang taon, hindi masisiyahan ka. Wala naman nangyayari. Ganun pa rin naman ang buhay natin. Hindi na tayo umuulag. Paman? Gawin natin, eleksyon na yan. Pagdating eleksyon, si Juan naman ang ating pipiliin. Pagka napili natin si Juan, matapos na naman ang ilang mga taon, ganun pa rin. So bakit ba ganun na lang? Pipiliin mo ulit si Pedro. Malaya ka ba talagang namimili? I mean, if you do not have any say in the process of the recruitment and the selection of your leaders, and you are simply asked to go to the precinct in order to cast your vote, wala naman tayo pagpipilian. Si Pedro, si Juan, yun at yun pa rin. Same dog, different color. Yun ang sinasabi natin. So kung gano'n ang nangyayari po, ano ang gagawin ng taong bayan? It simply just means that the people have lost control of their own platform. Wala yung entablado ng kapangyarihan mo na kung saan inilalagay mo yung mga artista na kikilos doon, na sinasabihan mo yung mga artista, itong script nyo ha, kami bilang taong bayan ang talagang direktor. Papalakpakan namin kayo kapag ka sinusunod yung script. Papalakpakan namin kayo kung ginagawa nyo yung aming iniuto sa inyo. Pero kung hindi kami papalakpak. Kung paulit-ulit lang na pinapalabas nyo yan, iyon at iyon din, nagpagsasawa nga yung tao, pareho din lang naman yan eh. Ang ginagawa ng iba, lumalabas ang sinihan. Nakakalimutan nila na sila may-ari ng sinihan, na sila may-ari ng entablado, na sila yung director at saka scriptwriter, na sila pwede nilang tanggap, bagoy natin lahat to. That is the philosophy, you may say, or the politics of constitution making. It is politics because it simply just means, are the people going to regain control of their power, or will the people just continue to have the people on whom they have imposed this power to act in the manner that they want? A very specific example that we have in our present constitution is, for 32 years now, yung utos ng taong bayan na itigil yung political dynasty, hindi na gagawa. 32 years na nasa saligang batas ng 1987 yan. Ilang kongreso na nagpalit-palit, pero walang kongreso na nakapagpatibay ng batas na sinasabi hindi na pwede yung ganyang political dynasty. There was never an enabling law. Okay? Kaya tapos yun, gusto bagoy ko konstitusyon, sasabi, mahal alam niyo ba kung magkano ginagastos ng kongreso? para palitan lamang ang pangalan ng isang kalsada o para ipatigil ang isang halalan tulad ng Sangguniang Kabataan? Pagka sinaliksik nyo yan, gugulat kayo, bilyon ang ginagamit ng Kongreso para makapagpasa lamang ng isang batas na nagpapalit ng pangalan ng kalsada o kaya nagpapatigil ng isang halalan para sa mga kabataan. Ngayon, sasabihin ng tambay, ayaw na namin, pare-pareho rin lang may script. Gusto na namin baguhin ulit yan, binabawi na namin yung kapangyarihan namin, aayusin namin ang paghahanay-hanay ng kapangyarihan. In short, we will have a rearrangement of the power structure because basically, that is the proposition of the shift from unitary to a federal government. It is about power. Changing the Constitution is not about cost. Hindi ho ito tungkol sa magkano. Changing the Constitution is not about disruption. Hindi ito tungkol doon sa may iba yung kaayusan. Changing the Constitution is about power. It is about power of those who act as delegates or agents of the people and the source of power and authority, the people. Pag yung gumagamit ng kapangyarihang bigay ng taong bayan, ay hindi na niya ginagamit yon sang-ayon doon sa kanyang mga utos, panahon na para baguhin ang laro ng kapangyarihan siya sa atin. Even in any game of power, when the rules do not favor the ones who are supposed to be benefited by it, then you have to change the rules. Yung iba, ang panahon, diba, basketball. Meron isang basketball, di ba? Pagka yung napipikon doon sa laro, ang gagawin na lang, aawayin nyo nun. Kamukha yung nangyari sa Pilipinas at sa Australia. Diba? Napikon yung nagkapikonan, nagkabarugan, pareho nasuspinde. Dahil yung mismong layunin ng laro hindi na nagaganap. Ganon din po sa politika. In the game of politics, which is essentially a game of power, when the power is no longer utilized for the benefit of the source of that power, which is the people, then you have to change the rules of the game. And changing the rules of the game involves restructuring the power arrangement. Iyon po ang pinag-uusapan dito. Hindi dito pinag-uusapan yung kung magkano. Yung magkano, management discussion lang yun. Nagagawa ng paraan yun. Hindi kung mga nakakaalam sa inyo yun. Meron yata tayo rito nasa accounting at yan tungkol sa magkano. Pwede talagang tumaas yan. Pwede pababain yan. Alam niyo po, 20 or so years ago, when the owner of San Miguel was in exile in the United States, I had the occasion to have an intimate discussion with him. Tinanong ko siya. Ang tanong niya sa akin, oy, ang tawag kasi niya sa akin, Cholo, ikaw ba, pabor ka ba sa union? Bakit ko ako? Dati mo, gado ko ng mga union, December 4. Kaya lang ito natanong, alam mo ba, kapag kami nag-a-apply sa bangko ko o sa San Miguel, sila ang tinatanong ko kung magkano gusto nilang sweldo. Ganun mo, hindi kayo nagsasabi ng sweldo. Ay, hindi. Pagka sinabihan ako gusto nilang sweldo ay 1 milyon, sasabihin ko sa kanya, sure, agree. Sumang-ayon na ako sa gusto nilang sweldo, 1 milyon, 1 buwan. Ako naman nagsasabi sa iyo, ha? Bibigay ko sa iyo 1 milyon, ito naman ang quota mo. Ito ang quota mo sa deposito na dapat mong makuha sa bangko na kung saan magiging manager ka. Ito rin ang quota mo sa sales pagdating kung ikaw sa San Miguel at ito. Kakaintindihan ba tayo? So hindi yan magkano. It's a relationship. Ganon din dito. Sabihin natin sa konstitusyon, ito ang ating gagastusin. Malaki, tumaas. Pero ang benepisyo, lalaki ang ating produksyon, lalaki ang kapakinabangan sa taong bayan, ganon ang dapat pananaw. Pero bakit yon ang nagiging usapan? Kapag ka merong mga issue kayong naririnig, tulad na tungkol sa magkano, ang dapat yung unang tingnan, mga aking minamahal na kababayan, my compatriots, sino gumagamit ng issue o usapin at anong interest yung kanyang pinangangalagaan. Because in politics, that is how it is. That is how things operate in politics. Issues are used to promote and protect interests. Interests have forces behind them. And forces, in turn, are actually supported by power. And the power is what, once it is mandated, becomes authority. That is the dynamics of politics. Kaya pag kami issue na pinag-uusapan, iyon agad ang tanong, ano ba ang interest niya? Tingnan nyo ngayon, sino-sino lang mga tumatayo laban sa pagpapalit ng saligang batas. Hindi yung tumatayo yung mga pangkaraniwang mamamayan. Kasi hindi nila ang usapin sa kanila. E paano naman yan? Ano naman ang kapakinabangan ko yan sa sikmura ko? No? Paano ba yung mapapaunlad ng buhay ko? Yung iba, ang kanilang usapin, mahal eh. Mahal. Walang iniwan niya sa mamimili at sa nagbebenta. Okay? Yung nagbebenta, titiyakin niya na ang halaga ay yung malaki ang kita niya. Kaya pag-aralan niyo sino-sino ang tumitindig laban sa pagbabago ng saligang batas, kani-kaninong interes ang lumalaban dyan. 3 days ago, the group of CJ Bono, sila Well, si Dick at saka si Wendell, who were in his technical team that crafted the Constitution, was in a group in Makati, Management Association of the Philippines. Walang gusto bumayag sa Management Association of the Philippines. Kaya sabi ni CJ Bono, I know that I am in the company of those who may not actually be receptive to the proposition to change the Constitution. But I am used to drafting minority opinions, which in the lapse of time eventually become the majority. Sooner or later, hindi maaaring hindi hilingin ng taong bayan ng pagbabago. Kasi sabi nga niya, more than 100 years ago, na 100 taon na tayo dito sa unitary government, ano ba talaga yung totoong kaunlaran binibigay nito sa taong bayan? And that is the reason why I began with the philosophy of how change happens. It is up to us. Kung yung pagbabago, magiging katulad ba ng ginawang pagbabago ng India, ang payapa at lahat? O yung pagbabago ba ay sisiklang at puputok sa ating harapan, magigising na lamang tayo kung banang-bana. Kaya sinasabi natin, gano'n ang pagbabago nangyayari sa Mindanao. Eh, meron bahagi ron ng Duruganos, yung Marawi. Bakit gano'n? Ihintayin mo mangyari yun sa Cebu. Ihintayin mo mangyari yun sa Central Luzon. Ihintayin mo mangyari yun kasi ang mga tao ay wala nang mapuntahan, hirap na hirap na. Lalo na, pinag-uusapan na lamang ay magkanong bigas. Anong taas ng bilihin? Yung tao, ipit na ipit, yun ang kanyang issue. Pero inililigaw yung taong bayan na yung usapin na yun ay dahil nga sa umiiral na sistema. Kaya gano'n ang nangyayari sa atin dahil yung sistema hindi makatao, hindi para sa bayan, para sa iilan lamang. And this has been the ongoing debate for a long, long time. And people will always try to cloud the problem by raising all sorts of issues like cost. That hindi po yun. Just like in the movie that I quoted. It is not about sex. It is about power. It is not about cost and disruption. It is about the people trying to regain their power back. Pero may proseso rin yan para ang tao na makuha niya muli yung kapangyarihan niya. And the process includes, and that is why Kamalayang Pinoy, some years ago, tried to show where we are right now. There has got to be first a change in our mindset. All change begins with mindset. How we look at things. If we are not wise in looking at things, we simply just want to know, but we do not want to understand, then we will not be able to respond correctly to this situation. So ladies and gentlemen, my dear compatriots, I will not belabor the issue. The role I've been given this morning is simply just to share with you what I believe is the real rationale. It is really up to us if we want to restructure our society, if we want to rearrange power, and if we want really to be the ones to exercise it. Wala kayong kapangyarihan na mamili na mamumuno kung iyon at iyon din mga tao yun ang may pagpipilian. Pero hindi nyo mabago naman yung mga pagpipilian kasi they say the dice is loaded against them. Meron kang mabuting hangarin para sa bayan. Alam mo na kaya mo talagang baguhin yan. Gusto mo sumali sa laro. Kaso yung laro, yung lamesa ng laro, ang mahal ng taripa. Wala iniwan yan. Hindi naman po sa pinupromote ko kasino sa naintindihan ko lang sa kasino. May mga iba't ibang lamesa sa loob ng kasino, di ba? Kung meron kayong mga kamag-anak sa abroad na gusto mag-bumisita rito, nakikita niyo. Dito, ang minimum bet is 50 pesos. Dito, 100 pesos. Doon, 500 pesos. Hanggang may 5,000 pesos. Paano ka sasali sa lamesa na minimum bet ay 5,000 pesos kung wala kang 5,000? So, hindi ka talaga kasali. Yung lamesa na dapat ikaw may-ari, ikaw nga dapat may-ari ng kasino. Dahil ikaw ang bankero eh. Tayong taong bayan at mamamayan ang dapat may-ari doon. Pero hindi tayo minsan makapasok. May entrance, hindi ka makapasok. Kung gusto mo naman upo sa isang lamesa ron, hindi ka makakaupo sa lamesa kasi wala kang paglaro. So yun lamang po. Sa laro, kinakailangan makabalik sa taong bayan yung kanilang kapangyarihan para may totoo silang mandato na naibibigay. At yung konstitusyon na kanila pong tatalakayin mamaya, ipakikita nila sa inyo kung paano nila hinangat, ginawa na baguhin ang laro. Iyon ang totoong usapin ko roon. Kaya ayaw ng iba na papagtibayin yung konstitusyon na yun dahil mababago yung laro para magkaroon ng totoong mas kapangyarihan ulit yung taong bayan. Iyon ang usapin. The real core of the conversation on the shift from unitary to federal state is power. That is the core of our discussion and our conversation. And it is up to us kung yan ay talagang natin babawiin. I always end my sharing with a favorite word, which may sound too idealistic. I really, really believe in it. So with your permission again, sabi nila, some men dream of things impossible dream. Kaya yung kanta na yun. Sa mga idealistic na tao, lagi na lamang yung pangarap ay hindi nagiging posible. Pero sa ito, sabi ng iba, some men think of things that never were. I dream of things never were. At yun yung aking sinusundan. Kailangan matutulit ang tayo ng mga Pilipino na mangarap at maniwala na yung pangarap natin hindi lang mananatiling panaginip, kundi yung pangarap natin ay magkakatotoo. Para po sa amin na sabi ng iba ay nasa departure area na rin. No? Kung ikukumpara sa mga bata na nagsisimula pa lamang sumakay sa aeroplano, ang amin naman po iniisip, ano yung ating ipapamana dun sa mga bata, sa mga anak natin? What is it that we are going to bequeath to them? A nation and a country in this present state? Or are we going to be able to bequeath to them a nation that really has the promise of fulfilling its dreams. Kaya po, nasa sarili po yan, naririto po kami para lamang nakaisa ninyo na mangarap, hindi para ito yung maging isang bangungot, isang panaginip, kundi para ang ating pangarap ay ating masagot. Pinamaga po sa ating lahat.